Hello and welcome to another in my IT customer support video tutorial series. In this lesson we'll be talking about installing and managing end user technology. This lesson will focus on the site installation and maintenance steps and an overview of the types of information that should be gathered before installing a computer system. We'll try to learn a little bit about putting together a site management notebook and the tools for hardware installations. And then what to do after you've done an install, those wrap-up tasks and those ongoing site management tasks. Well, let's go ahead now and take a look at our first objective, which are the major site preparation steps for all technology installations. You of course first need to do a pre-installation site preparation, and I'll go over the steps that are included in that. Then you'll do a site management documents. You'll have the actual hardware installation, your operating system and network installations, application software installation, and then the installation wrap-up tasks. This is a brief overview of the system installation tasks. Let's go more in depth now into the pre-installation site preparation tasks. And in those tasks we have location, ergonomics, power requirements, network access, air conditioning, lighting, and fire suppression. Let's take a little bit closer look at those pre-installation site preparation steps now. Now you should have a checklist with you prior to doing your pre-installation site that lists different things that you should check for right away, such as are there any spare or space requirements? Are there any space constraints that you can observe? Any special furniture that are there? Any material storage requirements? Perhaps there are current ergonomic issues. Is there an adequate power supply in the area? What's the air conditioning like? What are the lighting circumstances? Is there need for more lighting? Is the lighting adequate? Is the fire suppression system operational? These are just some of the common things you should have on a checklist of possible issues in doing your pre-installation site preparation. All right, when we talk about locating technology components, locate the computer system and devise strategies to conserve the overall space. Look at the system components. Look at the footprint, the length times width measured in square inches, of course, when you do that length times width of your desktop PC. This is your system unit. Look at your other components, the keyboard and mouse. Anywhere from 26 to 28 inches up from the floor is pretty much your optimal desktop height. Is the display screen, is it at an optimal user view, which is straight head or even slightly down, so that the user isn't bending their neck back in a very unergonomic friendly way? Check out the printer. Is it conveniently accessed for loading the paper, retrieving your prints, and clearing your jams? These are some of those little things to look at when you're looking at the location area, such as your supplies. Are things conveniently accessible? Such as storing paper. You don't want too much paper. If you've got label, you can't be in you don't want your area to be too humid, or the adhesive on your labels can seep and cause problems going through your printer, and it could cause paper rolls. What about furniture considerations? There is a lot to be said about the importance of adjustable chair because we are all at different heights. So make sure that your seat is adjustable and it can swivel, and does it have armrests or not? Maybe you have an ergonomic friendly chair that has that waterfall seat edge, or what's the base like on there? Is there a carpet protector down to help with build of ESD, and is there the ability for that to help have a more ergonomic difference in protecting the carpet and you as an individual? If you go to stand, some people like to stand at their desk for a little while, and is the carpet protector there to help protect from debris falling from the table or your desk? A lot of different location technology components to think about. What about space constraint solutions? We talk about these, such as maybe you don't need a desktop. Maybe you could go with a small form factor computer. Is there a need for a separate work table? How about, is there the ability to have a wall-mounted display screen? What about under the desks? Is there a need for a keyboard shelf? Lots of things to look about when we are discussing these concepts. Ergonomics, I mentioned ergonomics a couple times, and ergonomics is just a study of how to design technology to your workspaces. And really, in essence, you want to design your workspaces to your end users, not your end user accommodating your workspace. You want to minimize health problems such as strains and sprains. You want to, and that can be in your eyes, your wrists, whatever the case may be. You want to maximize the worker's safety, their productivity, their comfort level, and all this will turn into being able to maximize their job satisfaction. Some of those common causes of discomforts and ergonomic pains are back or neck muscle pain, leg pain, eye strain, and headaches. This is probably number one because the amount of time people spend at their desks. And then lastly, wrist and finger pain. You want to make sure that you can help avoid or help the repetitive strain injuries, help to reduce that. You also might hear this just called RSI. The most common of these that you might have heard of the repetitive strain injuries are carpal tunnel syndrome. And that is going to affect your wrist and fingers. There are lots of ergonomic solutions that we can employ for our end users. As I said earlier, there's one of the ergonomic problems is back or neck muscle pains or numbness. Getting a more ergonomic chair, one that's more adjustable and more contoured to the body, can help solve some of these issues. The simple adjustment of the height of the keyboard can make, or if there is not a shelf for your keyboard, or if you have one and you can adjust the height of it, that can make a big difference on that numbness they might feel in their wrists or their fingers. Simply being able to take frequent breaks and perform different exercises can reduce that repetitive motion and stress on the back and neck. With leg pain and numbness, we can do certain things, which is obviously, once again, an ergonomically modeled chair. We can place a footrest on the floor to help change the elevation of their legs. Eye strain and headaches, we can reduce office lighting. Sometimes this is a big thing to do in your offices to that have old lights. You can put in new lights and fewer of them to help reduce the office lighting. You can maybe need to reorient your screen to reduce screen glare, or put a anti-glare screen filament on there. You can those anti-glare filters are a little pricey, but they are definitely worth it for some reasons, for security, some reasons for the eye strain that it creates on people. You can replace your display screen with a larger size with better resolution, so they're getting more of a viewing area with more crispness, so they're not straining to look at what is in front of them. So these are just a couple examples. There are ergonomic friendly keyboards if you want to help with the wrist or finger pain and numbness. Using a Bluetooth keyboard, that can help as well, so that they're not limited to the length of the cord. So make sure to keep these things in mind and address ergonomic problems. A lot of time, tech support individuals don't think about the ergonomics in the workplace. They just are thinking about the technological problems, but this is definitely one area that you can work on to help your organization and your end users as a whole. Ergonomics is really just an area where we as user support specialists can develop special expertise to add value to your employment potential, to building in your resume, and having something else to add in your interviews when an employer says, is there anything else you want to add? And you can talk about different ergonomic projects possibly that you've worked on and helped in previous organizations. Another area is in power requirements in areas. As technology support specialists, we should look at, especially in a new environment, what are the outlets like? because some of your older buildings are going to have 2-prong outlets that don't have the proper grounding. So you want to look at getting those rewired, and definitely avoid any of those cheater plug adapters that allow you to take a 3-prong and put it into this that will then accommodate putting your plug into a 2-prong outlet. This is not a wise practice to employ, so make sure you do that. Get outlet testers to test your outlets if need be. Make sure that you have the hot, neutral, and ground prongs all working and wired correctly. This might be out of your scope, but it's definitely something to think about in your environments. If you might want to look at shared circuits. Install devices on a circuit that does not also service equipment with heavy motors or generators. A dedicated circuit for hardware devices is preferable, especially in like a server room. Especially for such things as a larger UPS, uninterrupted power supply, you want to have a dedicated circuit for this, not a shared circuit. It's okay to have shared circuit for like desks and certain areas, but when it comes to our servers, which are going to be plugged into more than one UPS, so that you have that failover ability, make sure those are dedicated circuits and know where those are at in your circuit breakers, so that if something goes wrong, that is going to limit your troubleshooting. Watch out for cables on the floor or under carpet. Make sure you're using the proper equipment for when cables have to be run over floor. Make sure you're getting some cable guard to protect those. If you have the ability, make sure you have some conduit, which are sometimes called runways, going along those wall-mounted cable, so that you're protecting that. Make sure that if you have a bunch of wires that are loose, to use some plastic cable ties or some type of cable management to bundle those cables together. Know the difference in areas between surge suppressors and UPSs and sometimes just those multi-plugs, because there's a big difference. You want to make sure that you have the ability to use surge protectors, and usually your UPSs are going to have this built in. But a surge suppressor is a protected device to reduce the damage to equipment due to power surges and power spikes going to your equipment. Just having a multi-plug is not a surge protector, and this is what most people employ, but you definitely want to have a surge suppressor or surge protector to help protect all of your electronic equipment. And I can't stress enough, getting a UPS for your computers is the way to go. You're going to have the power suppression as well as the ability to have some time to adequately shut things down if you have a power outage, so that equipment does not stop abruptly. As I said, a UPS, that uninterruptible power supply, is going to provide backup power and time for your connected equipment to be shut down correctly to prevent damage to your hardware, even your software, and especially the data that you have up at the time. So any type of abnormal termination will not affect any of that. And just know how to figure out how big of a UPS you need, because the larger the battery capacity, the longer the equipment will operate under that UPS power. If you have a lot of very energy intensive devices on a smaller UPS, you're not going to have them. You may not have the amount of time you need to properly shut everything down. Air conditioning is another one of those areas that you need to check in your pre-installation tasks. If you have a large number of devices that will be installed in close proximity, you might need a greater amount of air conditioning. In a server room, we like to have a lot of air conditioning, usually dedicated, because the amount of heat that are generated from our high-end electronic components. It's best to just consult an HVAC specialist to determine the BTUs of your air conditioning capacity, and check that with your documentation. Work with your manufacturers to get documentation as to how much BTUs are needed for the equipment, and then add all that together to make sure you have the adequate amount. As you know, light type can be a problem for your lighting issues. Your fluorescent bulbs, those old fluorescent bulbs, may flicker at the same rate as an old CRT type monitor, and hopefully you don't come across any old CRT monitors. If you do, make sure to find out the local disposable methods of taking care of that, not just throwing it away. There are safe ways of getting rid of those CRT monitors as well as fluorescent bulbs, but switching to LED bulbs are going to take care of some of those lighting problems that you may see in an environment. It's going to provide more light, less electricity, and it's just the best way to go. Check your fire suppression systems. Make sure that you have the proper fire suppression in place. Make sure that you know the different classes of fire extinguishers, because electrical fires use a class C. Know if you have halon substitute extinguishers. Make sure that you're not using halon. Just make sure that that's one area that you examine. Now we need to be able to document details about the system. So we need to talk about now the purpose and contents of a site management notebook. Now, a site management notebook is going to consolidate information about the technology equipment. What hardware is there? What software is being used? What are the various operating systems? What is the network like? And this site management documentation is going to be useful to operate, diagnose, troubleshoot, reconfigure, upgrade, and repair a system and its components. It's very critical in multi-computer situations where many support staff are likely to work on a variety of components and configurations. So make sure you have a site management notebook available. Some of the other contents that's going to be included in your site management notebook are backup media logs. What type of backups are you doing? What's the frequency? Where's the media located? What are your problem logs? How do you find those? What about any available warranty and repair information? These are just very important things that need to be in your site management notebook. Now let's talk about tools that are needed to install hardware. Obviously in the IT world, you're going to be installing hardware. So let's briefly talk about some of the tools and materials that you're going to need as an IT support technician. And a lot of times you can buy these kits to help. And I'll show you an example of one here. Some of the tools that you're going to need, they're going to vary. You can get hard cases, you can get these soft cases. This is pretty typical of what a person might have. It's going to vary on size, of course. But you're going to need a nut driver. You're going to definitely need some pliers of varying sizes, a retractable claw to help grab those little parts when they get away from you. You might need a soldering kit, some type of knife, that's OSHA approved, of course. Flashlights are inevitable, whether it be a hat light, some type of clip light, even a little pencil light, whatever is needed. The more LEDs, the better. And the way I live, isopropyl alcohol. You can buy these little alcohol wipes; those are great. Having microfiber cloths are a must, especially when it comes to cleaning screens and touch pads like that. Anti-static wrist strap definitely needed, so that you are not risking any ESD damage. Compressed air, be careful with that, of course. The use of a multimeter. Even in today's world, we still, one of the items we love to keep in our IT toolkits are a paper clip. And the reason for this, and you come across different devices that, let's say a disk is stuck and you can't eject it, hitting the button or right clicking on the drive and selecting eject. They've all got this little pinhole that you can slip a paper clip into to physically open the tray. And you'll find that there are different little tools that you will put in your IT toolkits. Almost all of us put in some zip ties just for when we come across wiring issues where we need to have some bundle up our wires. I've even used zip ties on when some of these cases on desktops that the clips for some of the casing become brittle, and sometimes you have to zip tie things in. And I've put in zip ties and people not even have an idea that it's there. But just make sure that if you use these, you use them appropriately. But wire strippers, all kinds of tools that you're going to come across. In today's world, you should always have some type of digital camera for documentation purposes as well. Now this section is called Steps to Install and Configure Hardware, Configure Operating Systems, Networks, and Application Software. Obviously, there's not a one-stop shop for how to do everything specifically except for manufacturer documentation. There are some general steps to follow along. As you go through different certifications, you'll see that there are some certain steps, different checklists to go through. I'll try to generalize this a little bit. Now, in your organization, this is another one of those examples of where you should always keep in proper documentation. You might have a hardware installation checklist, for example, or a network installation checklist in case you're putting in a new access point or a new switch, something like that. But generally, you have some different lists to go through for your organization. An example of a basic installation: after you get all of your tools ready, go through your safety checklist. You might need to disconnect and disassemble the old system, or when it comes to a new installation, connecting your basic components, connecting it to power, connecting to cables, perform a basic system boot test. Maybe you need to, if you're adding some type of peripheral device, do that and then make sure that it works. If your site hopefully has a site management notebook, fill out any hardware configuration sheets that need to be included. Record all of your asset information, such as your serial number, model number, stuff like that, and then file any warranty information that you need to with your vendor or manufacturer. You might, if you're doing some expansion cards, keep documentation with that. Include that in your site management notebook. In your checklist, have that you remove the old, you install the new, you install the correct driver, you update the driver, and you disabled the old in your device settings. Things like that. Just having that checklist will help you get things done, whether it be software, network, operating system, whatever the case may be. Maybe even some follow-up items, such as making sure to power up the system and adjust the screen display, the brightness, installing all the software that's needed, attaching even security cables to prevent theft, and any information for the vendors, or if you have a contract with them and you are not going to be the first call support because you have a 24/7 support that you're paying for, have that information there included in your checklist to provide to the end user. Whatever the case may be, everyone's installation checklists are going to be different. When it comes to your operating systems, obviously different operating systems, different flavors are going to have different steps. Just make sure you have the steps documented. Also, when it comes to software, make sure that you know which type of distribution media you have, whether it's CDs, DVDs, flash drives, internet downloads, whatever the case may be. But know where your original vendor copies of the software are. And make sure in your help desk software that you are keeping this information on hand, your asset information. In case you are ever audited, you want to make sure that you have all of your media information available, serial numbers available, purchasing information available, so that you can prove the legality of the software you're using. Now, after you've done the installation of the hardware, OS, networks, whatever the case may be, there are some common installation WrapUp tasks that need to be performed, such as documenting the system settings, backing up all of your critical files just in case. And if you have to do a restore, you already have those ready. Make sure that when you're doing backups, you have multiple types of backups in your organization, not just one type of backup. Create rescue or bootable media if need be. Address any type of ergonomic concerns that you notice during the installation and configuration stages. Always update your site management notebook and documentation. As I said earlier, fill out any warranty and registration cards so that you don't get caught by something being covered under warranty but you didn't fill out the right paperwork or online documentation to make sure that you're covered. and then document any problems so that when another installation is performed, they don't come across those problems. And then always, whenever you've done an install, verify that your end user is satisfied. Make sure they know how to do something. Make sure that they sit down, they start up the system, they log in, make sure they're able to perform their work as needed. Now, part of technology support is risk management, and there's ways that we can help identify and minimize the risk to our end users and to our organizations, such as business interruption insurance, having engineering inspections performed. Media backups are a must. I've gone into several organizations and found out that they did not have backups of their important data. If a business is relying on data and they no longer have that data, that can be a real problem and even end a business life. When it comes to media backups, make sure that you have more than just one type of backup and in more than one location. Have a disaster recovery plan or emergency recovery plan, whatever your title you want to give it. You must have disaster contingency plans in place. Lots of organizations exist without having these, and if a major disaster occurs, they are down much longer than they would and not being able to support their customers if they had an emergency disaster plan in place. So make sure that if one is not there when you get into an organization, make sure to get one created and test that at least once a year just to make sure that it works and that the organization will not have lengthy downtime in case there is an unseen disaster. Now we'll conclude with some on-site management tasks, or those ongoing site management tasks. These are what we really call preventive maintenance, and a lot of places don't implement preventive maintenance for some reason. Now, preventive maintenance are just tools and procedures to reduce the likelihood of your equipment's inevitable failure and to reduce the repair costs. You can have procedures to clean and adjust your system unit, whether it's blowing it out with compressed air to get any type of debris out of there, replacing your disk drives, cleaning your printers. What some people definitely avoid, but it's kind of nasty if you ever come across one. Take your keyboard, turn it upside down, and shake it, and you will see what I'm talking about, and you will see why preventive maintenance is necessary. Even taking alcohol wipes to your mouse or to the keyboards is definitely needed. Even getting the proper cleaning materials for your display screens, so you're using the proper LED or LCD or plasma screen cleaners is important. I never return someone's equipment to them without having it properly cleaned. That's just me, but a lot of times when I get something, I don't want to touch it anyway, so I make sure to clean it. But if we do this preventive maintenance, we are going to lengthen the amount of life of our devices as well as keep our repair costs down. When it comes to things like disk drives, which are they're no longer a standard on the devices, so you'll probably come across devices that don't have a disk drive, but these are usually going to be replaced rather than repaired. Checking as an example for preventive maintenance on your system unit, test the battery strength. If you have a laptop and you test the battery strength and it's getting bad, make sure to get replacement batteries for that rather than letting that get worse and your end user having problems. And sometimes it's difficult to schedule preventive maintenance, but it is a must for technology support. Another thing in preventive maintenance that we sometimes overlook are our computer supplies. Make sure you maintain an inventory of, if you're not leasing printers, make sure you have an adequate supply of printer supplies based on usage. Any media that's being used, and some media is getting harder to find, such as blank optical media. A lot of manufacturers have stopped making that as it's becoming a legacy technology. But having flash drives or external hard drives, and when I say external, I mean external SSD drives. Make sure those are on hand. Any type of replacement parts you might need, such as if you have a high-end design station and you have a high-end graphics card, build into your budget to get another card just in case that one goes bad. And these are very expensive, so it's going to take some convincing to be able to get that available to you. With your Vendors, make sure to check with your vendors. Maybe have other sources on hand, such as some of your vendors will send you mail order catalogs. Whatever the case may be, just make sure that you have the ability to get your parts when you need them and not after the fact when something is down. And lastly, as an ongoing site management task, know about proper disposal of your electronic devices. Check with your local areas to know what your proper disposal options are. Maybe there are electronic pickup days. Maybe there are certain places you can go donate used electronics to. Sometimes there are charitable organizations that will take and salvage what they can from these devices. I've turned in a lot of computers that get recycled, where they get broken down to the most basic components, and these places will take what the metal they can use from it and such to help take and charge that into money, take that money they get from that and then donate it to other charitable organizations. So anything that's become obsolete, definitely don't keep it around. There's no need if it's not going to be used. So just make sure that you're not just throwing things away, you're using the proper means by which of disposing of electronic equipment. That is it for this lesson on installing and managing end-user technology. There's a lot involved here. I hope you found this information helpful and you continue to do some other research outside of here and be the best technical support professionals that you can be. Thank you, everyone.